In this lesson, we're going to talk about tables. Now, to be honest, we've already kind of been working with tables along the way. And when I say that, I mean a table is really nothing more than a group of columns and rows that are related in some way. Typically, a row is another entry of data, and each column is a different characteristic or measure of that data. So if you're looking at the screen, you see we already have a table. But what I'm talking about in this lesson is that there's something that people call an Excel table. Several years ago, Excel made this object, if you will, to work with data, and it really will enhance the way we do formulas and functions and build things. Let's see what these Excel tables are all about. First of all, on our table tab, we've got two tables, and we're mostly going to work with the one on the left, the smaller one, so you can see. At the end, we'll do a couple things with the one on the right. But we do actually have technically a table here, but let's make it an Excel table. Now, probably the easiest way to do that is off the Home tab. We'll go down to the button that says Format as Table. Click this drop down and choose a format. And I'm going to choose one that has kind of some banded rows here, kind of a medium, like a lot of formatting in Excel. They've got a light, a medium, and a dark group of formats you can choose. So we'll choose this one right here. And we do want to say it has headers, and that means we've got the top row is actually headings for the columns, so we'll click OK. Now, when I first learned about tables, I thought this is all they did, but it does so much more. Let's look at this first. So the first thing it did, obviously, is it applied formatting to everything on the table. The other thing it did is that we have auto filters attached to each column heading now. And if you get the drop down, it's just like the auto filters we put on in the filtering unit, where you can do some sorting there, or you can do some filtering on each of the columns. And now look at this. This is a really neat feature of tables. If I start scrolling down, you know how the data gets off the page, and we used to do a freeze panes, but look what tables do. When you have a table set up and you start scrolling it off the page, the column headings for that table take over the column headings for the worksheet. So you see I've got street address where B should be in bedrooms, bathrooms, price, size, city, state, and zip. That's really cool. And if I go back, they go return to the column headings. If I go below, they'll return to the column headings. The other thing is if I click off of the table, they'll go back to the column headings. But if I'm on the table and I can't see the entire thing, then my headings will be in the same row as the column headings. Pretty neat. So let's look at another feature. Now, we have done sums and averages and different formulas, but table comes with a built-in total row. So let me right-click the table and go down. We've got our own little section of commands here, and I want to show the totals row. And I'll click that. So now I've got an extra row here. And when I click in any row, I get a drop-down that shows the most used or most frequent aggregations or things that we would do. So on bedrooms, I might want to know the maximum number of bedrooms. And with bathrooms, maybe I want to know the minimum number. With price, why don't I pick the average price? And what about over here with street address? What could I do there? Well, I can click the drop down and actually do a count, so I can get a total count on what's in the street address. So this is really neat. And the neat thing is, as you add things to the table, it automatically adds them into the totals row. That said, let's go right to doing that. Let's see what happens if we want to add a row. So what I would do in a table is you go to the very bottom row, and as you tab through it and get to the end, once you hit your last tab, the table automatically gives you a brand new row. So let's go ahead here and put in some values for this table. And it'll be 2,500 square feet. And but everything about the table when I added that row updated. It automatically formatted it the right way. It added it to the totals. It made room for it in the worksheet. So that's another really good feature of tables. That's rows. What about columns? What if I want another column? So what if I want to find out what the average price per square foot is? So I can go here, and as long as I'm next to the table, I can just type in the new name of a field. Price per square foot. Okay. Wow, the formatting filled in and I got my auto filter already. Now let's build a formula. So I'm going to go in here and I want it to be price per square foot. So I'm going to divide the price by the number of square feet. So I'll hit equals and I'll click on price and then divide it by the size. Now, one thing to notice, and we're going to talk about that next, is normally we'd get cell addresses there. Normally it would say E4 divided by F4, but look what it did. It put this crazy looking field header notation in there. Now this is going to be really useful, but this is another way tables can be beneficial once you get used to them and working with data. Now when I hit enter, watch what happens. It automatically copied it down. Because you have a table, if you put a formula in, Excel automatically carries it to the bottom of that table. Now, we haven't made it an Excel table yet, but let's look over here real quick at our other table. So this table goes down to row 129. So when we're seeing this as an example on this table, it's not that big a deal. We can see everything. But here, when we add a formula, it's really going to have an impact because it just goes all the way to the bottom. We don't have to scroll and copy down or anything. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. I'll click in there and I'm going to format this as a table. And then I get the headers. And now I want to put in total revenue. Let's add the formula here, equals cost per item times items sold. And it copied it all the way to the bottom. Fantastic. So let's go back to our first table and talk about that notation that you saw there and what happens. One of the things about tables, it's not a bad thing, but if you go in here and you want to type some new values or something, you always have to have a column header with a table. And you see Excel gave it column 1, and if I made another one here, call it column 2. So you see how Excel gave it an actual name of column 1. Now watch something else that happens. If I try to make this price, Excel called it price 2 because I already have a column named price. So that's another thing. Column headers in an Excel table have to be unique. And that's because we're going to refer to them in formulas and functions and things like that. Okay, so let me go ahead and I'll right click and delete that. And along with those field names, every table also has a name. So if I come up here to my table design ribbon that I've got, and I've got a table, you see it gave it a name of table 3. Well, maybe I can just name this something different. I'm going to call it TBL for table and then properties. So that's a table name. And you'll be able to utilize the table name and those column headers when you do formulas and functions later. So if I want to come down here and get an average of the price, I could type average. And then I can start typing that table name. Table properties, hit tab to complete it. Then if I hit the left bracket, I get all the fields as their name. So I can come down here and tab on price. Put the right bracket, put a parenthesis, and the average is there. But you see that notation's a little nicer because it tells you I'm in table properties and I'm using the price column to get my average instead of like sheet 4 column D or something like that. Now the last thing I want to show you is how to convert a table back to a regular range, because with all of their benefits and all the things that are nice about tables, they are kind of confining sometimes. They have to be in the same structure and same format. And maybe sometimes you want to just work with your data back as regular data again. So go somewhere in that table, and we'll start with one over here, and right click on it, and you can go down to your table menu, and then just convert to range. That'll convert it back to a range. It's asking if we want to, say yes. Now, the one thing that you'll see is it doesn't take the formatting off that you had before. That's okay, you can leave that formatting, but it's not going to continue anymore if you type new rows. And I'll show you what I mean over on this table. Let me go convert this one back to a range. So go down to table, convert to a range. Yep. And now if I want to add a new row, I'll get to the end here like I did with the table, hit tab again, it just went to the next cell. So now we're just behaving like cells again. It didn't go back and give me a new one. What I want to probably do is go ahead and highlight this table and clear the formatting off and go over to clear, and I'll clear all the formats and get it back to how it was. Okay, well that's about it for Excel tables. Like I said, they're really useful, and we're getting ready to do some pivot tables and some charts, and from here on out, we're probably going to put our data in an Excel table so it's a little easier to work with. All right, well let's get ready for the next lesson.